So serious.
Well,
Smile.
Okay, we are live and we are recording.
excellent.
Floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:19 p.m. And we'll do roll call. Brown,
President.
Aviana,
Present.
Gutierrez, Clary, Papua,
Here.
and Rudolph present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and as a reminder, I will read our vision statement: the Bayshore community growing engaged hearts, educated minds, and empowered visionaries. Okay, and I need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay. Dr. Pittman, are there any public comments?
We have one public comment from a community member, Maria Downing. She has a comment that she wants to state regarding the Midway Village complex and Midway. So you have 2 minutes.
Oh, doing it now?
Yes.
Oh.
Take the floor.
So I could say the exact same thing? as
Yes.
mine?
Yeah. Would you like to use it to read?
Oh, well.
Okay.
Where do I?
You stand right there and face the board.
Oh,
You are, yeah, you're okay.
stand where?
Right there, right there.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then face the board and tell them your comment.
Okay, my concern is, I myself and my family, we lived in Midway for about almost 50 years. And so we are very well aware of the different chemicals that are underneath the houses. Okay, so when we found out that they were going to tear them down, I was concerned about what kind of protection do we have when they're digging, because we already know we had experts, a while back, how they check the levels of contamination. And I'm just concerned about when they're digging way deeper right now, and we are being exposed to all of those chemicals. And I want to know what's being done to protect the residents. I personally live right next to, where they're doing all of this construction and everything. And so we hear all of the, the stuff that's going on. We know that in that park, when they were testing the levels of contamination, that park came out being at the highest level of contamination. I think I've gone over the time. No, okay, well, so I'll find out that that's the first phase, and that we're gonna be going on top of that park when I know for a fact that people that were living in those units had to move because they couldn't even breathe. Like we knew a couple of families that had children that were born there, and they couldn't breathe unless they were on actual oxygen. And once they moved, they didn't have to, because it was affecting them, the chemicals. So I want to know what's being done right now, because I don't see anything actually being done. And then my other question is, if indeed they are building up on the hill and they're going to build townhouses up there, if it's Mid-Penn or whoever it is, as residents that have been exposed to these chemicals for like 50 years now, that we should have options to live in those instead of being put over there on the park where we know that that's just a death sentence for us. Because I mean, I already have a compromised immune system, and so that's why I'm concerned that if they put us over there, that's just going to be a death sentence for us, because I'm very well aware what's under there.
Thank
Thank you.
you. That's the only public comment.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 4. I need a motion and a second to approve consent items.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, superintendent search update. And with that, I'll pass it back to Dr. Pittman.
So I am going to introduce Dr. Beth Polito of McIsaac and Polito Consulting. She is here to present to the board on an update on the superintendent search. So I am going to share their presentation, and then Dr. Polito, if you just let me know when you want me to move the slide forward.
Will do. So can you see me? Is this a good spot?
Well, the people on,
They're not gonna see anything because of the.
they're going to see the slideshow.
Got it. Easy.
So you are,
The one thing
You are
that you may want to
perfect.
move closer to a microphone.
Okay.
That would probably be the most beneficial.
Well, nice and cozy.
Yes.
So good evening. As Dr. Pittman stated, I'm Beth Polito. I'm superintendent in Las Lomitas, and I'm working with my friend and colleague Maggie McIsaac to conduct the superintendent search. We're really excited to work with all of you. It's been super fun so far, and we're about halfway through the process. So tonight is intended to be an update, a timeline check-in, and for the board to consider the profile, the draft profile that's included in the deck, and take action on that, so that can be the official document that is used for potential candidates, and it will also be used for the interview process and potentially as a work product for the person that you select. It's a good roadmap for them. You can click the next slide. So the search team includes myself and Maggie McIsaac, and we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, I am a sitting superintendent in San Mateo County, and Maggie actually just retired a year ago from also being a sitting superintendent in our county in Burlingame. And we are working really closely with our subcommittee. So Joy and Dave have been working with us to try and streamline the process in between board meetings so that we can keep the ball rolling. We know that we're on a very tight timeline to have this person selected and for them to be able to have maybe a little bit of overlap with Dr. Pittman before she departs. So it's a priority of ours to just keep things moving along. On to the next slide. So the moment that the board selected us to conduct the search, we began the partner engagement, the educational partner engagement, and that includes all the constituents in your community. We conducted the survey, in which we had 35 responses. The survey helped reveal patterns of interest amongst all the folks who completed it. We conducted interviews of all of you, of key members of the staff here at Bayshore, the Teachers Association president, and from that moved on to focus groups. So there were focus groups that were conducted for, again, the Teachers Association leadership group, community members, and students, and all of that ended up being wrapped into that leadership profile and desired characteristics document that you will see. So I'm going to highlight a couple of pieces here that I think are of particular interest. Before I do that, though, one quick thing that I just wanted to mention was a big thank you to everybody who took their time to provide input into the process. I will say that the general feel from the Bayshore community is one of pride. Everyone that I spoke to is very invested in the success of this community and of this school district in particular. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for somebody to be able to come in and work with all of you and to pick up where Dr. Pittman has left off and really dig into the next layer of work. So in terms of the leadership profile, there are 4 main categories that were spoken about consistently over the course of all the input. The first one was communication and relationships. There's a strong desire that because Bayshore is small, but you are a part of a vibrant community, that there be a concerted effort to leverage resources around you, that you're not an island, you're not alone, that there are organizations and community members that can roll up their sleeves alongside you to make the most of this particular school. Coming from a one school district where I was before Las Lomitas, I understand how important it is that you not feel like it's just you, that your town council, in your case, city council, your Boys and Girls Club, your all the different organizations that support the work need to come together. And personally, I feel like the school district is the place that has the most leverage in doing that. All the other organizations have their own missions, and it takes somebody to be at the center. And I think the things that we heard that was repeated quite a bit through the interviews and the collection of data was that this is a community, this is a place where people want to see themselves as family, but it requires some wrangling. It requires some herding of cats, which can be difficult. I've lots of experience with that. The second category was hands-on leader. Again, small school district. There's not a lot of layers here between the day-to-day work that takes place in your classrooms and the board and the governance level. So therefore, whomever the board selects really needs to be comfortable with rolling up their sleeves, working with the principal, working with the teachers to ensure that the program is moving in the direction that you all want it to be moving, that there's clear lines of communication and everybody's on the same page about the big picture goals of the school district. That also includes the extension of the community. So not just the school, and I tend to call it the larger educational community. So that includes all those folks we just talked about. So there needs to be a strong connection there. The third category is a process-driven leader with strong focus on the instructional program. Similar in vein in the fact that when you're a K-8 school district, I was a middle school teacher, you're either going to be a self-contained classroom teacher by background, or you were a middle school teacher, have a single subject at your as your responsibility. So the goal being that this is ideally a candidate who really understands what K-5 and 6-8 classrooms look like, and how to focus professional development and coaching and support for the implementation of those programs. Elementary, middle, and high school have very different, well, there's different credentialing requirements, there's different training needs, the number of students you serve is different. So the experience of the candidate would be tremendously helpful if they had personal experience as a classroom teacher at one of those two levels, so that they can really understand what it's like from the teacher's perspective. And then lastly, an engaged equity warrior. Work has already begun in this district. It sounds like you're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of leverage there to continue. There's a lot of strong interest among all the constituents that this remain a focus area, and that ideally you find a candidate who has got some strong training and some background in this area, and probably even more important than that, has a real desire to pick up where you all have left off and continue the journey in a really specific and robust way. Questions before I move on to the next level, just because we just dug into this, but this is the critical piece for tonight in terms of needing your board approval. If you want to make edits to this before this gets posted, we would want to do that soon. So I'm hoping you had a chance to look at it before, and I'm curious right now if you have any feedback.
I really liked it. I think it's comprehensive. It's obviously it's tactical as well. So yeah, I did not have any issues with it. I really appreciate how comprehensive it was.
Yeah, I believe it was well put together as far as the input that you gathered, with the community, with staff and all the other groups that you've been in touch with. But I believe it's well-rounded.
Does it sound like what you're hearing?
Yes.
About interests for this candidate? It rings true. Other thoughts?
No, well, our community focus group is very good, and they understood that it doesn't end here, that we're working on building a better community. So,
And you feel like that's reflected?
No, I think it hits all the major points that we're looking for, and collaborating on that and the team. We did really, and hopefully find it an awesome candidate for this.
well, no, just hear everything everybody said. If I was part of anybody that was in this whole gathering of all this information,
I will feel good that it's valid over here. It's invoiced and it's stated over here, so it really helps.
Awesome. So after tonight, after the board takes action, then we will make sure that this gets put on the website and it will be sent out to all the applicants who have already completed an application. And then it will be sent to potential candidates as well, so that they understand this is what they need to focus on in the hopes that they'll get an interview. All right, candidate outreach, speaking of, as of the 19th, Dr. McIsaac and myself spent quite a bit of time listing all of our contacts, and we have, as we mentioned, I think in the paperwork for our selection, in a variety of counties here in the Bay Area, and a lot of folks in different places in their career, folks who are retired, folks who are still in the business. And I think there's a real strong interest, especially in a district this size, in folks who are just on the precipice of wanting to become a superintendent, and might they be interested in this opportunity. And I especially think, because I had the personal experience of being in a one school district, that it's a great starting point for somebody who's been really gearing up. So we reached out to all the people that we knew, we generated names, and we've been working on that list since then. We also posted the position in all the regular places, EdJoin and EdCal are typical places that public school districts would use to advertise. We also have utilized LinkedIn. And they all kind of send them back to EdJoin to complete the applications, and then Annette reaches out to us, and we continue the conversation with those connections. The applications will be due on the 25th by the end of the day. Actually, I think it's a 10 o'clock ending time. And then we will quickly, moving to the next slide, turn that around and work with Joy and Dave to finalize from all of the folks that we receive applications from as to who we would recommend that you interview. We will, they have access to all the applications, but we'll try and do some of the preliminary work to speed that process along by saying, hey, we received however many, and these 5 we really think are super strong. Here's a couple who we think, what do you think? Let's talk about it. And here's a few that really maybe fit the profile. So maybe not work and interview. As of right now, and thank you for everybody's patience and all of Maggie, I think she's listening, Dr. McIsaac's work in trying to get you all wrangled on our interview date. So I know that was painful. We apologize, but thank you for being flexible so that we could find a way to do this and to do it quickly. So June 1st will be a full day of interviewing, and that will be the first round. And we will do it here somewhere in Bayshore because we need to. And then we're still working on the details of location, but we should, I think we can't start before 9 on the 1st.
Is that, Teresa, was that
9.
9?
No, 9 is fine. 9 o'clock.
Perfect. So we'll start probably around 9, and we will go, my thinking is that we need to wrap up interviews by 3-ish so that we can do the debrief and have a conversation about who you would like to see for a second round. I actually have my own board meeting that night, so I'm going to be running back down the peninsula to do that. And then the second day is June 4th, and I believe that you're going to be calling in.
Yes, I'll be on Zoom.
Perfect. Typically what happens is your first round, you're anywhere from maybe 6 to 8 candidates, maybe 5 to 7, depends how strong all those candidates are, and then you're narrowing it down with my help. So I'll be sitting with you all throughout the day during your interviews, largely to just keep the timeline moving. But it will also really help me when we debrief at the end of the day. So I will have heard the same information that you will have heard, and move things along again for the second round. Typically for second round, it's 2 candidates. I think sometimes it might be 3 if you have a really exceptionally strong pool of applicants. We are starting now, anybody who has submitted an application, Dr. McIsaac and I are starting preliminary reference checks on them so that when we do the interviews and we're moving quickly right after that, we will have already done some of that work. And we'll be able to turn that around. You can go to the next slide. All of that being said, the goal is a recommendation to the board for action on the 14th. So between June 4th and June 14th, there will be a couple of steps that will need to take place. After the second round interviews, if you have a clear selection, then that's one thing. If you have more than one candidate that you want to continue to gather information on, then we would do the next layer, and that's background checks, Google search, and then complete reference checks. My personal opinion is that you really should talk to everybody they ever worked for. So we'll start with who they list on their application before the interviews, and then after the interviews, we'll hit it hard and go as deep as we possibly can. And then there's contract negotiations. So when you all meet, is one of our next steps with Dr. McIsaac and I on the 18th, and we'll be doing that in closed session via Zoom. We're going to have two primary goals that night. One is like it's an interview 101, little primer on what you can and cannot do in an interview of this type. And then secondarily, we'll be talking about contract parameters, so that when we are working with your finalists between June 4th and June 14th, we know what you all have agreed upon. And that will be, again, the subcommittee will work with those one or two finalists about the contract parameters, and we'll work that through. I think I covered it all. What other questions?
But more of just a comment to make sure the board's fully aware. So we will be provided full packets on all the candidates prior to June 1st. So our homework will be to review those packets so that we can use the face-to-face time as efficiently as possible. So that'll just be our homework that we have to do. It is. It will be.
Started going through the applications every day. So yes, we'll need to feature meetings that day. So thank you for reminding me. Other thoughts, questions, comments about the process, anything that we can clarify, support you with? And I know I wanted to just take a moment that even though Maggie's in Florida, Dr. McIsaac, sorry, she has been doing so much of the background work that it's making everybody's life a lot easier because she's doing that. So big shout out to Dr. McIsaac. Any other questions?
With regards to the round two candidates, the 2 or 3, when is it going to be possible to do site visit?
The site visits are not a given, but if you want to do a site visit, it would need to happen between June 4th and again, June 14th.
Okay.
I know we did a site visit when I was placed at Woodside. I think we did one for Los Alamitos. They're kind of 50-50.
Right. Just
depends on the wishes of the board. And we can work that through when we're together for the second round. We can talk that detail through. All right.
I worked with the deputy county attorney regarding getting a base template,
Right.
so that everything is in place. So then it's literally the only things we'll need to discuss is we can review it as a board, and then in closed session, and then it'll be a matter of just adding in any of the negotiables with the specific candidate.
Yeah, the template is pretty straightforward in the fact that the county council is going to make sure that you're covering all your legally required bases. And then I think before the 18th, we can identify which aspects of the contract are really where you have to establish parameters.
Yes.
Because some of it's just citing the law.
And I just want to be clear, we're pertaining that to salaries, correct?
Yes, so the negotiation,
Right.
the pieces are salary, whether you're a positive work calendar or a vacation type of calendar, whether you receive a car allowance or, when you're driving.
I just want to make sure that the
vehicles.
public is aware of what
Yes,
we're
those
discussing.
are what are the negotiations.
It's
Thank
a
you.
comprehensive compensation package and it includes everything that you could think of. The other thing I
So
just.
can I add to that?
Yeah.
So you discuss in closed session what it is, what those parameters are. And then June 14th, when you actually choose the person, it has to be done in open session at a regular board meeting that you approve the contract. It cannot be at a special board meeting.
Right.
So it's very important that we recognize that, because the intent is that it's at a regular board meeting, the public is aware of when that meeting is, It's posted a minimum of 72 hours in advance, so they know that this large item is coming up.
And that is their June 14th
And that's
goal.
June 14th.
It's typically also the time you introduce that individual, and anytime you make any substantive changes to their contract, it needs to be taken in the same format, in a regularly scheduled open session. Board meeting. So far, the candidate pool is really strong. So both Dr. McIsaac and I are really, really pleased that we've been able to generate a really strong list so far. And I personally, and lots of people that I know, they wait until the last minute before they submit their application, so I would assume it will only get better. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Well, I mean, at this time, since we're here, and unless there's any other questions, I was going to request a motion and a second to approve the leadership profile. So that can be done. So, okay,
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Pluto.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McIsaac.
Yes. All right, and with that, we will move on to item 6, Midway Village update.
So I am going to hand it over to April Moe. She is joining us via Zoom. So the board can see you, and we're also live on YouTube, so they can see you as well. And then you should have access to sharing your screen because you said you had a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't have a presentation per se, just a couple of images that might serve as a good visual backdrop. Excuse me. So hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is April Moe. I'm a project manager with Mid-Penn Housing, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening and provide a brief update on the Midway Village redevelopment. And I'll try to answer any questions that we have time for, or if I don't have the answer, I'll definitely be taking notes that I can follow up afterwards. I believe that this body last heard an update from my former colleague, Matt Lewis, back in January 2020. So I don't want to be too repetitive, but for any participants who are hearing about the project or about Mid-Penn for the first time, just some quick background. Mid-Penn is a nonprofit affordable housing developer, property manager, and resident services provider, and we're based in Foster City. We do work all over the Bay Area. We have 29 and counting communities just in San Mateo County, including one other community called Sweeney Lane in Daly City. As I mentioned, Mid-Penn doesn't just build, we also do our own property management and resident services, and we don't sell our properties. We're a long-term owner invested in the properties we develop and the individuals and families that we house. So hopefully I'm having a good technology day. So I'll share my first image here. So just a refresher on Midway Village. What I'm showing here is an aerial rendering. So this is not completely true to reality, but Midway Village as a whole is here. What I'm outlining here, if you can see my cursor moving, and Bayshore School is right here, just to give you a point of reference. So Mid-Penn started working on the project at the end of 2017 when we were officially selected by the Housing Authority of the County of San Mateo to be its revitalization developer partner. And just so everyone knows, the Housing Authority is still the property owner and will remain the property owner of the land. The buildings that we are building, we are doing so on ground leases with the Housing Authority. In 2018 and 2019, we did extensive resident and community outreach, including an open house that was hosted by the Bayshore Elementary School in November 19th. So we're grateful for that. Fortunately, we've consistently received lots of support for the redevelopment. The project as a whole received city entitlements and approval to move forward in June 2020. And construction on phase 1 is, as you've probably noticed, underway. Again, I did say phase 1, the project is going to roll out in 4 phases total. Each phase will take between 2 and 2.5 years to complete. And the phases will happen sequentially. That is one after another. So we can avoid relocating the current residents offsite. The existing Midway Village has 150 units. Those will all be replaced after all is said and done. And an additional 405 units will be added. And so we'll end up with a grand total of 555 units. This sort of breaks down the unit count as the phases progress. And here is phase one, which is what's currently under construction. So of the 555 units, and I know there were specific questions prior to this meeting about these, there will be 20 townhomes that will be for sale at below market prices. These 20 townhomes will be built in the fourth and last phase out over here in the blue edge. So at this point, that translates into a start of construction sometime in 2027. And that's if all three of the preceding phases go as planned. So we are still several years away from this. And so it is currently a little too early to know details like how they're going to be priced or what is going to be needed to qualify. You know, what I can say is that at this point, there's no reason to suspect that they would be, you know, not available for current residents to express interest in, apply for. But again, a lot of the details have yet to be worked out. And it is definitely our intent to create an interest list for the townhomes once they are close to being constructed. And we will keep residents and the community informed. To that end, we do have in mind doing another open house before too long.
April,
Yes.
can we ask questions while you're giving the presentation? Or do you want to wait till the end?
I was just going to say one more thing, and then I would be done.
I'll ask my question.
So we do have in mind doing another open house for the community. And I think a good time to do that is, you know, just ahead of going back to the city for design review of phase two in the orange. And that is looking like it'll be sometime this fall. So I'm thinking September, October might be the timing for the next open house. Actually, let me say one more thing. So for the phase one construction, we do have a bi-weekly newsletter, just like a construction update. I know some, if most of you are likely getting it. If you're not on that list and you want to keep up to date about phase one construction, reach out to me. I can add you to that list. And here is my email address.
I can email her all 5 of you.
Okay. Do we have that on the website as well, as far as updates?
I don't post them weekly, but I can add her information to the community that if they were to go to our mid-pen slot, that it would say if you're looking for updates to add to the server.
So Audra, I just wanted to say that I've been canvassing in Midway very quickly. Most of the residents, or not most, but some of the residents do not have emails, do not have access to, you know, internet. So I would hope that we can work with Pedro Fonseca to get him to distribute some of these updates because no one has seen them.
Is he your property manager?
Yes.
April, can you add Pedro Fonseca to your list?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Pedro is already on the list, but I will double check and make sure that he is.
I gave him a special invitation to come tonight, so he may be on YouTube.
So I have 2 questions for you. One is a question that came up based on what you were talking about, and then 2 is just a question from a community member who read a public comment. The first question that I have is related to the for sale homes, who gets first access to purchase those? Are they current residents? Who gets to decide of those 20 townhomes that will be for sale? Is it just pure lottery? What is the process for that?
That is unknown at this time. So again, it is really early it's still too early to say whether there's going to be a system to establish first or second or whatever dibs for any certain group of people. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, you know, because it is, they are meant to be below market, that's sort of a driving factor. So if there ends up being a lot of interest, our leasing and our for sale consultant will be having a close look at whether a lottery is appropriate.
Okay. And then the other question that came up was from a community member regarding contamination. So you may have heard it at the beginning.
I did. Thank you for the comments. I'll just be, brief, and I think that we can certainly follow up, although I didn't catch the woman's full name. So we have had the DTSC, the Department of Toxic and Substances Control. This is the California Environmental Regulatory Agency. They've been involved in the redevelopment for, as many years as Mid-Penn has. And they've, compelled and guided us to do a lot of studies and reports and mitigation plans, which includes the mandated presence of an environmental consultant as well as a member of the DTSC on site whenever there's any earth disturbing activity, so that they can, number one, monitor air quality on a real-time basis and take mitigation action if certain exceedances occur, and also just observe and make sure that the cap above the contaminated soil doesn't get damaged, or if it has to be reached, that it gets replaced. There's also going to be, as part of the phase 1 project, what's called a vapor mitigation system, which essentially strengthens the cap and allows for any vapors traveling in the soil to under any buildings to go up through specialized vents out above the buildings and dissipate. There were opportunities prior to the start of phase 1 construction to meet with DTSC on site to have some of these questions answered. And I think if there's a strong interest, we can float that with them again and see if they'd like to come out again to have any sort of meet and greet or Q&A sessions with existing residents or community members. But again, if the concern would like to be further discussed, then please reach out to me via email and we can follow up on that.
I gave her your email address.
Great.
And April, we're going to open up some questions for you from each of the board members, if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay. Ms. Brown, would you like to start?
Yeah, so during the times that you're going to be testing or monitoring, there are community members that would also like to have a chance to be right there at the same time at that site as well. It was a question that we had when it began years and years ago. So we would like some oversight by the community members or the residents as well. And then my second concern or question is when there's trucks rolling early in the morning before 8 o'clock, before they're supposed to start, it disturbs our community. We're already getting that, on a daily basis, except for Saturdays and Sundays. But I have called in and not really gotten a response on why they're coming so early as 6:15 in the morning. And I have videotape and everything.
Okay, thank you for that comment. We know that the work hours don't start that early, so I'll look into, why that's happening and see if they can limit the on-site truck and activity before the allowed start times.
Here, right there on site, and those big trucks, the cement trucks and the big 18-wheelers, they just whiz by. People can't get out of their cars and, have a safe route to the front door of the childcare. It's very dangerous.
Like sleep will be messed up, the dust.
Yeah, we know construction sucks. So we appreciate everyone's patience. And again, I'll just make sure that we are doing what we can to mitigate the noise and the dust. We have a bi-weekly check-in with the Child Care Center, and we're listening to their concerns as well.
Did any of the other board members have questions before I?
No.
Okay.
Just wondering,
yeah.
will you be posting more updates on the website? It's been a little stagnant for a while. And,
It has. That is a good point. It has gone a little stagnant. We are a little bit short-staffed, but once we can find some manpower to do that, we will post some updates. And definitely, as anything with the plans for the rest of the phases develops.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So April, I have some questions, and they're not directly solely at the Midway project, but also just any growth within the community. And I guess my first question is there a specific point of contact within the Daly City organization that you're working with within Daly City?
There's more than one. I guess it would depend on what subject or what.
Okay, then I'll go follow up with my concerns are when this presentation, I believe, and again, the numbers are not going to be exact, but I believe there's currently around 150 or so units in Midway Village.
Yes.
And as I heard you correctly, it's going up to 555 units.
Mm-hmm.
When I did this question about a year or so ago, the parking ratio per unit was going down, not up. So I believe there's like 1.5 parking spaces per unit now, and it was going to go down to 1.2 or something in this new project. So I definitely have some concerns regarding parking. Parking is already getting bad with the developments. Like, for instance, I can tell that there's parking overflow from the overlook, which is single family homes. And there's people parking on streets that aren't supposed to be, there's supposed to be no street parking. So it's definitely, that's gonna just get amplified. I'm also concerned about safety now, let alone if this, when Midway Village is tripled or quadrupled in size. As far as people speeding, and we have children that walk to school, and I see people running stop signs. And again, this is not directed solely at Midway project, but the growth of the community as a whole. And then, of course, the trash and the dumping, which again is already an issue, but I want to get ahead of it. If the community is going to be, tripling in size, those issues aren't going to go away on their own. So I just wanted to make sure that those are, if you do have conversations with the city of Daly City, I'm wondering, are those already on your list? Or is that something that is solely the focus, that would be the focus of Daly City?
Well, so Midway Village, when it received its entitlements back in June 2020, that entitled the 555 units plus the parking that was planned. So that's the plan for that is laid out there. I wouldn't be familiar with any methods or processes to update the Midway plan specifically. But as far as city policy, in terms of how the types of development they allow, the parking ratios that they allow, that's something that would sit with community economic development, their planning division, and any code changes they would have to bring forth to city council. I don't know if that's getting at your question about the
And
long-term
actually,
planning.
I guess,
Can I ask, can I?
sure.
So say it one more time so I can document it. So it's community development. And
The Community and Economic Development Department,
Okay.
which
That
has,
way he can. Yeah, okay.
And I want to make sure I heard you when you were saying, obviously, part of the Midway redevelopment is housing, but I thought I already heard you say services as well. And I was curious if you had a specific list of what those services entailed.
yeah. So for Mid-Penn communities, we offer a suite of services to our residents, and sort of this follows on what type of tenancy we will see. So at Midway, it's going to be family units, which means sort of as opposed to some communities are solely for seniors. So at those communities, we have a certain set of services tailored for seniors. But at a family community, we'll have an after-school program that's run by our services department. We have sort of classes that residents can partake in, anything from nutrition classes to financial independence to tax preparation guidance classes, and they'll put on sort of more casual social activities such as bingo night or movie night, or variations on that depending on how open things are in terms of the pandemic. And where we have units geared for special needs populations, our services staff will help in a coordination role with any of these service providers that those residents might be getting services from. So for example, if a property has any families or individuals who are formerly homeless and come with casework from a county vendor, then our staff will help be that bridge between the resident on site and making sure they're getting the services from the county vendor.
Okay, would there be any on-site healthcare or safety services included? Not direct in a sort of very regular fashion, although, for example, we have had our services coordinate and host vaccination drives over the past couple of years at certain properties. So sort of these one-off events is what you might see, but our services staff aren't sort of clinically certified to directly provide, for example, vision screening or things like that. Well, I will make a plug or a plea, April, to Mid-Penn. As some people may be aware, and some people may disagree with this statement, but we are in a bit of a food desert in this area, in this community. And we have Daly City has approved a lot of additional housing. Obviously, Mid-Penn is a huge part of that, as well as the Overlook. And then on the hill, we have Point Martin. And then there's also talk. So I would just ask that if the opportunity presents itself when you are speaking or having contact with Daly City, that you bring that point up to them. That's a great point. At Midway Village, we have done food drives, but you bring up sort of a more systemic issue that, a once a week food drive at one location won't necessarily solve. So, yeah. Noted. Well, plus, to build community as a whole. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
us and them. We are one big community here, and it would be really nice for us to have a central community location where people can go, their children can ride their bikes, neighbors can talk to each other, and go to grocery shopping, get a cup of coffee, etc. Other, city districts zone for that, but Daly City has not done anything on this side of the hill.
Mhm.
So it would be nice to see if they have a plan for that. And obviously that would be beneficial to everyone in the Bayshore community.
Definitely.
And I don't know if I missed it, but you had said that it was going to be primarily family units, but I thought at one point, wasn't there going to be a specific building for seniors?
Yes, so there still is a building for seniors planned in phase 2.
So I think she was just saying that,
Well, I was just what services would be available for the seniors, because she only mentioned the family.
oh, are the,
Right, so housing.
so you talked about in other housing developments that are solely for seniors, you have specific services for seniors. Since there will be seniors living in this community, be offering those services as well.
Yes, yes.
To all seniors or just the residents?
Just the
The
residents,
current residents.
just the current residents.
Okay, so I have another question to piggyback on David. As far as services go, we no longer have services coordinators. Both of the service coordinators, they resigned. So are they going to be replaced soon? Because the service that Peninsula Family Service provides, they are doing the food. I don't know about Mid-Penn Housing doing any food drives or anything like that. So we need more coordination, more collaboration with other community groups that are helping Midway right now. So can you gather more community groups and see that maybe we could coordinate something right now, because the seniors no longer have a program. And the after school no longer has a program for the Midway children.
Right, so the Mid-Penn services staff that were at Midway Village, they did recently leave Mid-Penn. So that is unfortunate, and I know that our services team is working to replace those individuals, and I don't know what that timeline looks like. The Great Resignation has unfortunately not spared Mid-Penn or our industry, so it's a little bit unclear how long that will take. I was not aware that Peninsula Family Service had picked up or taken over what
No.
they had been doing, perhaps in partnership with Mid-Penn Services.
Correction, I work for Peninsula Family Services. Midpen never started any food drive there. It's always
Okay.
us that started that.
Okay. And I know that our services folks are always interested in ways that we can partner. Again, I don't know the current staffing they have dedicated to Midway Village, just knowing that they're trying to recruit, a new AJ and a new LSR. But I'm sorry, who was it that just spoke and said that they were with Peninsula?
Teresa Papua, FAAPUAA. And I, late this evening or tomorrow, I will email you with all 5 board members' names and contact information, so that you have them on file as well. And then I can share with you if they have another non-board related job that is in relationship to this, I'll add that in the email. So for example, board member Papua works for Peninsula Family Services, so she has that connection.
Okay.
And others have a different connection, which I can send to you in the email.
Can I ask so whenever that time comes for you to meet with anybody from the city, would it be okay if, like, for example, our president Rudolph can be invited with those wonderful questions that he had. You know, and we keep asking these questions to ourselves over and over, and we never bring it to the city's attention. So maybe it's time for us to make that voiceful and bring
Well,
it to their.
Dr. Pittman captured the group, the point of contact. So, yeah.
So I think 3 things can happen from this in terms of the district in relationship to the city. One is I can reach out to that department to set up a meeting to have some questions. I also feel that it is important for you as elected leaders to make representation at the city council meeting and raise these questions. We have a representative from Midway, from the public, who came and asked a question that we don't have the answers to, and it's not at the purview of this board to make any decisions and or come up with any solutions. And I think it's really important that we model and we go to the places where the answers can be made, and that is city council. And so I think it's really important that the board goes to the city council, whether it's just in public comment in their 2 or 3 minutes, and says, these are the questions and concerns that I have. That will at least get us moving forward in terms of getting your questions answered.
And you can also schedule a meeting with the city manager. She's wonderful. You know, she will gladly meet with any of us for those questions that, you know, and the question that beautiful here can also, and I heard you that you mentioned that if you want to bring back that presentation and bring back those conversations that was held already. I was in those meetings at time, it was done soon. Maybe to revisit it again, so, you know, those questions can be raised up again, get more knowledge of it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Mo? No, all good? Okay, well, thank you, April.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
You too.
it. Okay. Item 7, educational services. I believe there's no items with that, so we'll move on to item 8, human resources.
Yes. And so item 8A is to adopt resolution 21-19, which is honoring Lisa Christensen on her retirement. So before the board votes on the resolution, I'd like to actually read it. Whereas Lisa Christensen was hired in 2008 as a teacher, and she taught at Bayshore Elementary for many years and teaching generation after generation of students from the same families. She's held teaching positions working with grades kindergarten through 6, helping learners to open doors to academic success. She served and inspired the students of Bayshore as a 1-2 split teacher, a 2nd grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, a 5th grade teacher, and an ELD teacher. She has inspired the children and made learning fun by taking them camping to the Presidio and Villa Verde. She has supported new teachers through the beginning teacher support and assessment program. She has deepened her own learning by participating as a Yale Fellow. And she has generously donated her time and money to school fundraisers and has overseen many fundraisers during her time at Bayshore, such as donating money for her 4th grade class to adopt a tiger during the Year of the Tiger. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bayshore Elementary School District and the Board of Trustees commend Lisa Christensen for her years of loyal and unwavering service to the students of the Bayshore Elementary School District and wish her happiness in her retirement.
Excellent. And with that, I need a motion and a second to adopt resolution 21-19, honoring Miss Lisa Christensen on her retirement.
No, I don't want to leave.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 8B is a public hearing on the contract proposal for the BTA contract for 2022-2023 school year. And with that, I will pass it back over to Dr. Pittman to present the proposal.
So the first proposal is from the district itself. We are opening negotiations for Article 7 evaluation and Article 7 evaluation and Article 9 wages. Should I need to open the public hearing?
Okay, and the public hearing is open at 7:18 p.m.
There are no public comments.
Okay. So it'll be closed at 7:18. Okay,
So next is BTA, the representation of the teachers union, is also sunshining. And they are proposing to open negotiations for Article 9 wages. So we need to open for another public hearing.
okay, and that is 7:19 PM, public hearing opened,
No public comments.
and we'll close at 7:19. Okay. And then we move on to item 8D. Okay. So I'll need a motion and a second to adopt the job descriptions.
Motion to adopt job descriptions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was easy. Item 9, business and fiscal services.
So this is resolution 2120, authorizing the issuance and sale of our 2022 refunding general obligation bonds. This is for us to refinance under what's called the Cinderella bond. And so it will shave off 1 year of us paying back our bonds, saving the taxpayers close to $450,000. I am not going to read this resolution. So I just need a motion in a second to adopt it.
Can we get a motion and a second for resolution 2120?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so with this, we're actually going to be, tomorrow is the pricing, and it'll be funded by the end of the week. So it happens.
Item 10, school reports.
So for oral reports, for end of year activities, each one of you has in front of you a handout with all of the end of year activities. I printed it out for you so you can take it home and you don't have to remember to write anything down. It is also on our Google Calendar. But just to quickly go over it today, this week we are celebrating Staff Appreciation Week. Remember at Bayshore, because we are such a small community, we celebrate all of our staff together on the week that's in between Teachers Appreciation and Classified Appreciation, which is this week. So, excuse me, today lunch was provided to the staff by me and Mrs. Baker. We had a Aloha barbecue. I think it was good. I think it was well received. It's gone. So.
That's a good sign.
Tomorrow, lunch will be provided by the PTO. Thursday, breakfast will be provided by our student population, our student groups. And Friday, I believe the board is providing breakfast, but
Yes.
there was some possible negotiations going on today. So I have down the board is providing breakfast.
We will be providing something on Friday.
Just reminding the board that state testing is occurring. It starts tomorrow. We are back in the swing. It's been 3 years since we have actually done the formal state testing because COVID hit in March of 2020. So we did not test in 2020. We did not test in 2021. So 2019 was the last year. So for many of our students, even our fifth graders have never taken it. And our sixth graders took it 3 years ago. And so it's going to be a learning curve for many of them. But it goes from May 11th through May 25th. We're currently giving the summative LPAC, which is to assess our English language learners to determine if they are proficient in the English language, and that ends May 31st. This weekend is Seussical the Musical. Hopefully you have your tickets. Friday night is 6 p.m. Saturday we have a double show. We have a matinee at 2, and then Saturday night again at 6. Memorial Day is Monday, May 30th. There is no school.
Wasn't it at 12?
I'm sorry, it is at 12. It says 12 on your paper.
My tickets.
It says 12. I'm gonna set it. The last week of school is the week of Memorial Week. There's early dismissal every day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, students get out at 1. Friday, students get out at noon. 8th grade promotion is on Thursday, June 2nd in the gym at 10 a.m. I believe I told you 11:30 before, but it's been shifted to 10, so make sure you make a note. And that's because we were in conflict with lunch because kids are still in school. So it's 10 a.m. on Thursday. And then our preschool promotion is on Friday, also in the gym at 10 a.m. Summer school runs from June 13th through July 8th. And it's 9 a.m. to noon for Bayshore that we are running. And then from 12:30 to 4, and I'll talk about this a little bit later as well, BGC is running that for anybody who wants to be a part of it. But we take care of the morning, and our staff run the morning, and we compensate our staff. We also have lunch available. So our kitchen staff will be working in the summer as well. It'll be grab and go lunches. But our lunch is good, whether it's in a bag or on a plate. So that's it for end of year activities.
Note of the those back-to-back promotions. And I like to be here, but then, and I will hate for the parents, even as parents, if they have a child in preschool and in at 8th grade, they will have to miss work for 2 days to attend those events. I was wondering if there's any way that we can put it in one day.
Oh, yeah, we can go back and have that conversation, see if preschool can be moved to the same day. We can also check and see how many families that affects. To see if there is, because if it doesn't affect anybody, then but we will follow up and see what the possibilities are.
Okay. All right, and with that, we'll move on to item 11, superintendent's reports.
So the first is a COVID-19 update. So over the last 4 weeks, this is each week we've had 1 case, 0 cases, 1 case, and then last week we had 4 cases, but the 4 cases were all unrelated. They were at different grade levels, and they were not, there still is not spread within the school. The spread is within the community. In terms of masks, with us being strongly recommend, 90% of our students and staff continue to wear masks throughout the day. In the county, I met with the Superintendent's Association today. Cases continue to rise, but they are still much lower than Omicron. They're about 5% right now, whereas during the height of Omicron, they were over 20%. The county is saying that they are not changing the protocols right now, and that we are supposed to continue with the mode that we are in. That you want to run your summer school programs with the same that you are. But to remind everybody that we've learned a lot from where we are now to when we started in March of 2020. And I just want to remind us of when Superintendent McGee came and spoke, and recognizing that there are several mitigation strategies that we can employ. While we are strongly recommend, as I said, many people wear masks. We want to make sure that we continue to wear masks if you're in tight quarters, if you're having small venues or large groups of people, if the ventilation is not good. And so we want to make sure that we just continue to remind our families about that, and our staff members as well. And then as we transition to fall of 2020, we'll continue with the strategies that we have. I don't know where we are going to be in masks as the year continues to go, but I do know that we will continue to do response testing. So we will still have the ability, if somebody tests positive, we will be able to test the entire class that are possible close contacts, and continue that model. And we have been very fortunate. Our school nurse is a rock star. And does a fantastic job in terms of moving through the system, supporting our kids. As I said, whether it's COVID related or just being a kid related, she's doing a great job. So I'm very grateful that we were able to bring her on board this year.
Question, is there anyone who's checking the dates on the tests that are being given?
Oh yeah, we're required to. They were required to. And then we order more. And so I think, I don't want to give the date. I don't want to speak out of turn. I know that they haven't expired, but I don't know when they're going to expire, but I'll confirm and I'll let you guys know.
Do we have a date, maybe in the summer, for the booster shots for
For us to host or for when?
either us to host or a community?
I do not, but I can check on that. I can follow up with the city or with the county.
I can add this, that I did approach Midway Village, our housing manager And he did say yes, but it's still gonna be a push. I've been asking him for quite a while, so he's kind of melting.
So I do need to ask just for clarification from the county, because I need to follow up on when the testing is possibly gonna end. And then also, what is the purpose for us hosting or making sure there's something available in terms of the clinic is if it's not easily accessible. And so we need to find out how easily accessible boosters are in our community.
Right.
And then as we've said, you know, Bay Shore is a special community. And so telling people to go up and over the hill may not be possible. And so that's why we hosted. And so I would anticipate if we would be able to do something like that again. And then it's just determining what the, you know, smaller children have a smaller dose. So sometimes they only do adults, sometimes they only do kids. I would like us to be able to offer for both. To board member Papua's point earlier, you know, our families need to do a one-stop shop.
Right.
It's not helpful to have to come multiple times. So yeah, so I would look into seeing on doing a booster shot clinic here at the school.
And then item B, the equity.
Yeah. So there's
Oh, sorry. I was just superintendent's reports. Okay. Okay. Equity audit. We're having discussions around the results from the equity audit recommendations. And then at this time, wanted to open it up. Are there any recommendations that we could start to act on now with regards to obviously the transition from Dr. Pittman to our new superintendent? There may be some items that might be more beneficial to wait on, but is there anything, any low-hanging fruit per se that we wanted to start to handle now?
Right, so the equity audit gave 7 recommendations, 7 action steps. And so the question before you is, are any of those 7, there's 17 days left of school. So are any of those 7, can they be addressed in the next 17 days of school? Or is this something that we want to hand off to the new superintendent and say that this is extremely important, this needs to be, we need to have a plan to roll out these 7 action steps starting in August. You will start in July, hopefully, but staff comes back in August, kids don't come back in August. So that's kind of where the discussion is.
Yeah, and I, wanted to point something out on the equity audit that we all reviewed, all of the board members had an opportunity to review. But I understand that at one time prior to the pandemic, Teresa, this board member Papua and Dr. Pittman and board member Rudolph, you guys attended a workshop as far as equity workshop. So, and then the pandemic hit. So now here we are with the equity audit. And there was some areas on the report that really looks with regards to how the school is doing as far as equity. And some of those things that we talked about, Dr. Pittman, yesterday, is that everyone has a different idea or view of what equity means. And that's something that we really need to focus on. I know we talked about having to put a DEI subcommittee together, which is very important. I think that's going to be something that we can recommend that we do with the new superintendent, which is Dr. Pittman's successor. So, with that being said, it's just, I know there's a lot of different areas that we really need to focus on. And some of that work is also related to the subcommittee as far as the culture, climate, and then
Which will go into more.
Right.
Yep.
It's very interesting because I'm on the panel for, in our organization, DEI.
Mhm.
And even everybody, the whole staff is invited to be part, even HR, everybody's over there. And you plan things to do with the staff as a whole. You know, right now, just for an example, is we're looking at 2 movies. And our assignment as the board, we watch each movie. And we come in and share. Then we share our insights about it. And then we do lunch with the staff. And then we talk amongst it about the movie and share with everybody. And it's really helpful, you know, it's really helpful. And I like to have that on thinking. That's something that, so but going back to what Dr. Pittman is, I think what our staff and everybody needs to know is what is our next step? But it's not gonna help right now because we need to wait. We just need to put it out there that we are committed to this. We're not sitting on it, we are committed to it. We're going to pass it to the next chosen candidate sitting on that seat. And hopefully that will be part of the turmoil, the you know, the spinning wheel,
Right.
You know, so.
And one of the things too, I want to make mention is, and I know other districts are already in the process, but you know, within the board policies, we also have an equity policy that we, you know, I believe you mentioned Nicole Anderson, who's running that. Maybe we go outside and bring someone in to you know, have this workshop so we can prepare and move forward and you know, talk about community. It's very important, along with all our staff and everyone, and have everyone buy into those equity policies.
I guess, yeah, given that there are, what, 17 school days left? One, though, I would like to do is, I know for a fact that the school, like, the equity audit itself is a snapshot in time. It was done, and I know for a fact that there has been progress made since that report was published. So what I would like is just an update, an addendum to it as to what additional work has been done. Obviously, out of the 7 items, maybe one of the items, no, we have not touched it, and that's fine. But I'd love to have something to deliver
To the
to
new
your
superintendent.
successor
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
say, okay, you've got the audit, and then from that was at up to this point when the audit occurred, and from there to the end of the year, this progress was made.
Okay.
And that way, there's a clear starting point for your successor.
Okay, so I will work on an addendum that I'll present to the board at the June board meeting. That can then be handed with the audit, and all of the candidates can access the audit by going to our April board meeting. It's posted there.
Yeah.
And so they can read it themselves.
Yes.
But I will add an addendum, so when you hire the person, whoever you choose, you can say, these are the steps that we've done between now and then, and this is where we want you to continue to move forward.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Next was the after-school programming update. So I wanted to clarify some things first, in terms of what the funding model is for our after-school program. So first of all, Library and Rec is the current lead fiscal agent of our ACES grant. The City of Daly City has applied for and received the grant since 2008. Bayshore has never been an applicant, a co-applicant on the grant with them. We've always been a partner. We just signed the MOU saying we're in support of this, obviously, because it serves our kids. They have partnered, the city has chosen to partner with Pdsa Midpen for the grant since 2008. They've partnered with them for many, many years, even before that. But they have chosen to partner with Midpen Pdsa to provide the services of the after-school program for the Bayshore community. With the merge of Midpen, BGC, and BGC Peninsula, the Library and Recs Department is going to extend their partnership to BGC Peninsula. I've had conversations with both city manager and assistant city manager, and have gone back and forth with emails, and they very much value, honor, and want to continue the partnership with BGC. And so That's just gonna continue as BGC merged, which is, we are recipients of the services that both provide for our students. The current ACES grant funds run through June of 23. It's always a 3-year grant. And so we will reapply in the fall of 2022 for a 2023 to 2026 grant. At that time, though, the city has communicated with me that they are willing to, instead of us just being a partner, Bayshore actually being a co-applicant, so that eventually the funds will come directly to the Bayshore School District, which they have never. And I would actually gather that probably in 2008, when the money came, the city came to Bayshore and said, we want to do this. And the person who was leading Bayshore at the time was a part-time person, said they didn't have the capacity. That's great, run with it. And I think that's different now. I think that the district has the capacity to be the fiscal agent. And so they are willing to have us be a co-applicant and then discuss how to transfer the fiscal oversight.
And that would be actually moving from the exception to the norm.
Correct. There are something like 555 ACES grants that are funded in the state of California, of which 544 go directly to the school districts and 11 go to either a city or different source. And then I am setting up a meeting with Pdsa Peninsula to discuss our Bayshore's employees who also do the after-school programming, so that they can be hired on by BGC Midpen, so they can continue to support and be in the program with our kids, and they will not lose out on providing services and or having a job. And so that meeting is going to happen hopefully this week. And then next week, myself, BGC Peninsula, and the city are all meeting together with the library of rec staff to talk about what this looks like for us to continue this partnership.
Now, well,
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
cover the part when me and you had that conversation that, we're looking at the dollar amount, but the school don't even get that.
Correct.
It's the ones who are running the program that sees the funds. I was too excited just to hear that. So
And so we have begun planning with BGC Peninsula for the summer, as I talked about. Our staff, Bayshore staff, will run the 9 to 12 program, and then BGC Peninsula will run the 12:30 to 4 program here on our campus. And it's available, we put out a survey. We have about 100 students that are on board to be in the morning, and there's about 70 that are on board to be in the afternoon. And they have a set curriculum. We asked the families so that BGC Peninsula could plan the afternoon program if they wanted sports or playworks, if they wanted some STEAM classes, what it was that they wanted, because there are actual programming classes that they decide, we want to give what our families want, what our kids want, and so they will design the afternoon based on the feedback that we have.
So that will be a contract that we had to sign between all those that's three entities altogether. That's us. Eventually with the new money. Yes. Yes. At what point that if we decide that the services that they provide, just an example, does not serve any need, or the structure or the once it's not satisfied, right, it's not satisfactory to the community, at what point then we change that we no longer need your service, that we wanted to go back to how it was before? Is that a contract that can be
so yes and no,
revoked, or?
So a couple of things. So one is in my conversations with library and rec and the city, meaning the assistant city manager and the city manager, they have no desire to run the program by themselves. They have partnered with BGC for 20 plus years, for 14 years with the ACES grant. And they have said that they value and honor that partnership and they want to continue with that partnership. That they have no intentions of running or presenting to run a program by themselves. With that said, once Bayshore becomes the fiscal agent of the ACES grant, then you would sign a contract on an annual basis.
Okay.
And you would say, so, but that can't happen until 2023. So
Right,
then at that point, you would partner with BGC Peninsula to begin with. And if they aren't meeting the need or meeting the requirements and expectations that Bayshore has, then you go back and you say, look, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we want to reevaluate. Look, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we're going to reevaluate. But then you have to put it out to kind of like an RFP
Mhm.
to find a program that could run it, because after school programming is a business within itself. And so if it's something that the district will want to do by themselves, there's a lot of time and effort that would need to go into figuring out how to run that program by themselves, hiring, staffing, those types of things, designing an after-school program. And so that decision I don't think should be taken lightly. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but I don't think that it should be made overnight. I think that there needs to be a plan in place to determine if that's the route the district wants to go. But you wouldn't be able to do that before 2023. Actually, I would say you probably wouldn't do that before 2024. Because my hope is that you're going to see next year that BGC Peninsula is doing a great job, and then it will be a moot point. But if they're not, then you can say, hey, look, we're going to be the fiscal agent. We might decide to make a different decision if you don't start providing the services and the expectations that we have.
so
But we can't do anything until Bayshore becomes the fiscal agent.
right, and so we do, so hopefully the successor will be able to identify
Mhm.
and able to, and I want the community to step up
Mhm.
and voice their opinion about this, because at the end of the day, well, Joy and I, or none of our, we don't have a kid to sit in those after-school programs or those summer programs. It's the community children that are going to be there, that are going to affect the decision that we're gonna make today. So hopefully I will still be on board to decide together. Thank you.
Is there any talk about the community center and getting a shared use agreement potentially?
Yeah, so those are still in conversations. I still need to meet with our PE teacher to determine exactly what it is that they need before I can have that meeting with the city.
Okay.
But I have made promises that there are certain things that I am going to make sure that I get taken care of before I leave, and that is one of those things. I
Excellent.
would like to have that taken care of so that the new superintendent doesn't have to worry about that. It's already in place as we move forward. So I'm going to be asking Mrs. Baker to follow up with Coach Santos, because we have 17 days left of school.
And I want to make mention, like with the club, with the SAC, the sports club, that's been a huge success since they established that. And I know with all the movement that's happening, we want to ensure that that's going to continue.
So yes, so
Well, yeah.
actually, that, because it's not, I mentioned that we're gonna be having conversations with BGC
Right.
Peninsula for the staff members who will run the after-school programs. That will be separate. It'll run simultaneously, because that's not a 3 to 6 program 5 days a week.
Sure.
And so we will be able to continue that, and those staff members who are running that will just be compensated from the district using our new ELOP funds.
Okay.
So we can continue that, but it wouldn't fall under ACES or fall under BGC Peninsula, because it's only 2 to 3 days a week. It's not for the full 3 hours. And so that will allow us to run it on our side and have our staff be available to do it, either the way they are doing it or make it better, however they decide to modify it. So yes, so that's a conversation that's already, I've already made that promise and that commitment. And so I've communicated that with people who need to know. And so that'll be set aside.
Great. Well, I'm encouraged to hear that, Dr. Pittman, because I like that model, and I could see other subjects being brought up by the students saying, hey, we would like to create this kind of club. and not be limited in any way.
Right.
So,
It's also, it provides an opportunity for our staff who want to have that connection with kids after school and who know our kids and want to meet the needs without having to make that commitment to be there like every day.
Yeah.
Which just makes a lot of sense that way. And then conversely, that PGC staff will be on our campus before the end of the day with this new model, so that they will have more interaction with our community and our teachers and our students.
any other questions?
Yeah, no, and that's great to hear. I just want to make sure for our children and our students, building that continuity throughout as they develop relationships with teachers and staff, and then now we got clubs and so forth. Every time there's changes that happens, there's a shock value that takes place, and especially coming out of this pandemic, it's even worse. But we want to make sure that we have that consistency flowing through.
And I'm hoping that if Coach Kevin is listening, he's on the meeting, that he is hearing, that his ears are ringing, because, he's done a really amazing job, and also in doing the work of kind of uplifting, kind of what we did with him, he was an instructional aide, and now he's our PE teacher, and now he's kind of paying that forward and working with some of our staff to give them some agency and ownership over the program too.
And then one last thing, as far as BGCP, as far as access to the whole school, is there any limitations on what areas they may be able to use or not use, or?
It depends upon when it is. We would work that out when we're having conversations with them. It depends on how many kids are involved. If there's no kindergartners and they wouldn't have access to the kindergarten yard, they would absolutely have access. And it also depends upon when it is, how it relates to what we're doing.
Sure.
So, for example, we do our Wednesday staff meetings in the multi-purpose room. So on Wednesdays, we don't use that space. But next year that may change because we won't necessarily need to be spread out as much. We may go back to having our staff meetings in the STEAM labs. Or they may be using the STEAM labs because they're doing makerspace and things like that. And so, we'll figure it out as we go. I don't anticipate that we would say that they can't use a space unless the school is using it themselves to begin with.
Sure.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
And I think that
It's our kids.
Right.
yeah, it's our kids, but at the same time, it would just be a matter of setting the tone of making sure it's in as good a shape or cleaner than the way you found it.
That's
And
correct.
we've done an excellent job of that when we went and looked at the schools that we went and visited, the relationship that they have. They use their own supplies. Each of the teachers has a rolling cart. They actually rotate the classrooms they're in, so they're not using one teacher's classroom for the whole year. They rotate them every 2 to 3 weeks. And so there are lots of systems that they have in place to make sure that, one, they're building connections with the staff, 2, that they're being grateful for the space that they're using, they're returning it better than they found it, and they're communicating with the staff in terms of how it's.
Sure. That we'll move on to 11D, adoption of the governance handbook. And so this is actually just our board's opportunity to formalize it. So I will need a motion and a second to adopt the governance handbook.
Motion to adopt the governance handbook.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we'll move to 11E, subcommittee reports. And data analytics and technology. Dr. Pittman, did you want to say anything first for that, or do you want me to go ahead and kick it off?
I'll give
Okay.
it to you and
Joy, do you mind if I just kick it off? Okay, so the data analytics subcommittees met several times. I want to definitely thank Ms. Baker and Dr. Pittman, in addition to my colleague Joy, and also our own teacher, Mr. Gertis, for contributing to this subcommittee. We've been making headway. It's slow going, but it's good. I think we are making valuable progress, and we're taking our time collecting data from the staff, what tools they currently use, why they use it. And again, our goal is not to take anything away from someone that they're finding value, but just kind of map out what we're currently using and then find out if there's ways to enhance that across the board. So we've surveyed the staff. There's surveying of parents underway. And then eventually we'll be hopefully surveying the students as well to find out what they like as far as learning tools regarding online. Let's see, did I miss anything? No. I mean, there's basically, that's where we are right now. And then Dr. Pittman and Ms. Baker and Mr. Gertis will be conducting follow-up interviews, more one-on-one. So taking the survey to start and then reaching out, several of the survey participants said that they would be willing to have follow-up one-on-one conversations to dig in deeper and collect more data on that. And then hopefully we will be able to compile all that data and report out to the entire board the next steps. And again, I think the goal of this is just to make sure there's to me, there's two sides of the coin. There's the instructional aids, so what the teachers are using to teach the students. And then there's the analytics part of how to capture the progress of the students and then communicate that out, not only for the teachers to have it what is easier for them to organize it, but then communicate that not only to the students, but the parents as well. And that way that, ideally we'll get to that point where it's very easy for a parent to log in and they'll know exactly, how their student's doing as far as, standards-based grading. And if they have any questions, they'll know exactly the next steps to go to. So Joy, did you have anything else you wanted to add on?
No, as you're talking, it made me realize that it would be best for the new year that we provide grace for the parents, because a lot of them may not know how to use technology that's available to them. Just providing that as a tutorial if we can't do it in person, and giving that option. I think that there was a lot of care put into the surveys that were sent out, and we're hoping to get as much feedback from everybody, and hopefully it'll make a big improvement for the following school year. Our plan for 2022 and 2023 is to set expectations and then provide a technology scope and sequence. Audrey, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so there is a technology scope and sequence that talks about what kind of technology you're supposed to be utilizing to support the standards at each grade level. And so it's a matter of setting expectations for how technology is used within the classrooms by the students and by the teachers, and then working with the teachers and the instructional aides on how to use those technology scope and sequence. So that as kids are, for example, utilizing Google Slides in relationship to their speaking and listening standards. So they're doing presentations. And so there are some of our staff are not don't have a deep understanding of the scope and sequence, but they're actually doing the work. They just don't realize that they're actually doing it. And so part of that is being clear on what the scope and sequence is and supporting the teachers on actually being able to implement it in the classrooms. And that's it.
Okay. Then we will move on to the culture and climate.
So you want to open that up or?
Sure. So we met the other day and discussed things that we wanted to implement now, something that can be done by the new superintendent, and things that can be completed by Ms. Baker before the end of the school year. So far, we surveyed the staff on, am I reading the right one? Our priority starting now and addressing with the new superintendent will be culture and climate accountability and feedback support around academic instruction. And then the theory of action, our math visioning, where Audrey, did you want to show that to them?
Yeah. So we participated in, and I'll let Ms. Paquet, who's here tonight, if she wants to add to it.
Sure.
So we have had math coaches working with our math teachers throughout the school year. And one of the things that we learned when we did the culture and climate survey was that to varying degrees, their teachers felt support regarding math instruction with our coaches. But part of the difficulty was the subs. And so we weren't able to get teachers out all of the time. So we kind of revamped the work that we were doing with our coaches. And as we started thinking about what does math instruction really look like at Bayshore and what is our expectation, so they conducted empathy interviews with all of our math teachers, every teacher who teaches math, to find out what their philosophy was around math instruction. What is it that we want for our kids? What is it that they need as a professional to help our kids get there? And all of this was to get us to a point where we could have a vision for math instruction by the end of this school year so that it could be rolled out for next year. And so in this process, we then spent a whole day with the coaches, myself, Mrs. Baker, and then we had our math lead, Mrs. Heinrich Van Gundy. We had our middle school and PTA president, Ms. Pape, and then we had Ms. Rozier as a special ed representative attend the day with us. And we worked through a theory of action, which I will share. And then as we worked through this theory of action, all these things. And it's not gonna be right, so let's see. There it is. But I want to. And so what the theory of action is that it says at the end of, we started with the right column, students at the end of 8th grade. What is it that we wanted of our students by the end of 8th grade? And then in order to make that happen, what do our students need to do? And in order for our students to do that, what do our teachers need to do? And in order for our teachers to do that, what do our admin and leaders need to do? And so we worked our way through. Everything that is non-highlighted was what we came up with on that one day. Then we took it back to the staff on our all-day release day and got input from them. They had questions that came up. Then we met again and we said, are there any modifications that we want to make? And so then that's where these highlights come in. So these highlights were rewritten based on the input that we received from the rest of the staff. And so then on May 25th, we're going to go back to the staff and say, this is what we have. This is our vision now for math instruction at Bayshore. And these are all the things that we're going to work through as we go into the fall to get us there. And we thought this process was a great process that we went through. And so Mrs. Baker replicated it with our ELA team as well. So they're doing the exact same thing so that we're going to have a theory of action around math instruction. And we're going to have a theory of action around reading and writing instructions that will then help us get to actually rolling it out and making it happen in the fall. Ms. Pape, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this follows along with what came out of the BTA that we want to see some more progress monitoring. And this is one of the ways that we can do it with a focus on students. Like, what do we want students to be able to walk out the door on promotion day with, and also clarifying for teachers, what do we want to see in the classroom? What do we expect their quality math classes to look like? And then also for teachers to know that this is what the admin is going to do, and so we can be reflective and say, teachers, is this what you're doing in your classroom? Why or why not? And then community with admin, are you able to do these practices? Why or why not? This is important checkpoints for us to build out robust math program.
And then the second part of that was at our all-day release day. Many of the staff members have been introduced to what's called a Pdsa Cycle, which is Plan, Do, Study, Act. But we rolled that out as well as a reminder to say, okay, we're gonna be working through this, and this is just us starting. We realize it's the end of the school year, but this is going to be an expectation in the fall. So we're going to start now. We're going to do some practicing, and this is going to be something that we're going to make sure that we continue and build in time throughout the fall. And so to the point of collecting the survey results, going over the equity audit, meeting with the BTA executive team and getting their input as well. All of those are tied together. And so these are some of the things that we have been able to address now. And then I'll let board member Gutierrez, Valari, and Adelana finish with other things that we're doing. But so this was just an example to show you in terms around supporting instruction. These are things that we're doing now. We didn't just say, oh, there's only a month left of school. We're just going to wait till the fall. Or you're getting a new superintendent. We're just going to wait till the fall. These are things that we wanted to make sure that we put in place before the end of the school year and before the new person starts, so that the new person has something to work with, a foundation to start as that person moves forward.
Right. And, it's obvious that it's a work in progress as we're coming to a close this end of school year. And with the expectation of having, a Dr. Pittman successor come, he or she come to us in the summer. There's still going to be a lot of work that we're going to continue on, but then again, there's a lot of work that she's still working with all the staff and making sure that we can accomplish things before the end of the school year. We talked about updated job descriptions. That was one of the things on the culture climate survey. So there was, as you saw, on our agenda, we now have those roles and responsibilities updated, and then moving on to currently surveying parents, and then eventually surveying students. And I'm not sure if we're going to get that accomplished.
Our hope is to get a survey to the kids, yes, before the end of the school year.
Before the end of the school year, right. And showing appreciation of the staff is very important, that, we work through this, and even now than ever before, and continuing to do that work in recognizing what our staff does. There was, we talked about the safety concerns for SCC trainings, and that's probably something you want to.
Yeah, so there's been this is the first year that we've offered a special day class for students that are high needs with IEPs. And so it took a little bit of work to finally get access to some trainings through the county, but we were able to get them. And so it's continuing to provide them with trainings and to recognize that, especially students with IEPs, that we need to be providing them. We have a moral obligation to provide certain things for them. We also have a legal obligation to provide. And so we want to make sure that we're meeting both of those. And part of that is learning how to interact with students that may not know how to communicate the way that we are used to communicating. And so it's a learning curve. And so part of that is addressing it by providing trainings for the staff. This year we started with just the staff that are in the classroom with the students. And then the goal is for next year to provide those trainings for all of our staff members, because we all interact with our kids and they are all our kids. It's not a group of children, they're all our children. And so there are often times that we have an opportunity to interact with kids that are not in our class. And so we want to make sure that all of our staff members are supported to support all of our students.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions so far? Not?
It sounds like you guys are busy.
Yeah. Also reassessing salary schedules through budget development. That's something that the administration is continuing to work on. And these are the priorities while we wait for the new superintendent. These are going to be the main priorities with accountability, feedback support, and restorative practices. And also the recommended cycle of the survey. And I think, Joy, you mentioned
Yeah, we
the cycle of
determined how many times a year we wanted to send up the survey, and we figured that doing it quarterly would be best. Typically before a board meeting and before an end of the cycle. And so the dates that we've chosen are between the first one, October 3rd through the 14th, to review at the November board meeting. And then the second survey will be sent out on February 13th through 24th and reviewed at the March board. And then the final one will be done between May 19th through May 26th before the holiday weekend, and review at the June board meeting. We're hoping that the surveys will provide constant feedback and room for improvement, and also emphasize the things that they are doing right. The teachers work hard in administration, and so we want them to know how much we appreciate everything that they've done through these difficult times, and we know things are ever changing, and we can't expect them to stay the same. And they're doing the best that they can with what they're provided.
And then, this is the recommendations. We gave it once this year. It's the first time. It was also an interesting year. And so that plays a part to do with it. And so the recommendation for next year is to give it 3 times, and then you may determine at the end of next year that you want to only give it 2 times. But it definitely is something, and the purpose for giving it multiple times is to go over the feedback and to make adjustments, so that we're not just giving it in March, and then you really aren't able to see what the next year looks like. And so, so that's where we are.
Yeah, well, on in addition to that, just also giving it multiple times to track trends. And ideally will be trending.
And that's our goal. Overall, we want to make sure that we have a positive culture and climate environment here at the school. And that's what we want to continue to strive for. And what it's going to do for everyone is to be involved and come together and to ensure that we all have the same goals, and our students are our number one priority in all this. So we have to do our jobs and make sure that we hold all of us accountable.
And we hope to have large participation amongst the parents and the students, so that we can get their feedback and hear what their voice is.
That's very important.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Any questions?
I think while we prepare for positive climates, we should also prepare ourselves for the negative climates. How we balance ourselves out. So and how we prepare ourselves to handle those negatives or whatever comes in the way without panicking and throwing a tantrum. And it's okay to get those negatives sometimes, because without those negatives, we cannot grow. So having expectations both ways, but having open mind about it, just about.
Sure.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, then we'll go ahead and move into item 12, board reports. And with that, I'll open up. Start off at the far end. Lisa, do you have any board reports?
First, I attended a trip to Napa, and it was a progress seminar that was hosted by the Chamber of San Mateo. It was so surprising that I didn't see a lot of educators, and this was my first time as a first-time attendee, and I didn't go under our board, which is something that we should have went, or 2 of us should have went, or 1 of us should have went to represent, our board. Kalima was there, and this was her first time too. And one of the panelists that was done over there, the breakout session was done by Hector Camacho and Nancy McGee. And it was about education is everyone's business, thriving students, thriving country. And it was a 2-day seminar over there, and it was have all these different panelists that comes over there. But this was the first time I found out, the first time that education was part of their conversation. And these were all top people in San Mateo County, top businesses, stakeholders, whatnot, that was over there. It was very beautiful. So I look forward to go, and I went under the San Mateo County fairgrounds. They paid my way to get there. It was beautiful. It was networking. Putting ourselves out there is what we do, and I liked it because I saw myself there, as an educator, and reaching what we're sitting here for, and how important education is. And it's everybody's business. It's the next door's business. It's the guy there that has the market there's business. It's the Dollar Tree's business. So that's why I like it. I also was able to enjoy at the DCPLA Portland, and they have a new winner. And I was like, oh man, I wish I'd see some Bayshore students there, one of those, you know, competing, those
Right.
candidates competing. It was beautiful. I have here a whole list of events that Daly City. And so please put it out there in our community.
If you want to read what these
No,
are.
no, Dr. Pittman will put it on the website, and also, this month is the mental health month, you know, and the color green. I forgot to bring you guys ribbons, and these were the ones that, this is another flyer. You know, like what you say, Mr. Rudolph, they don't know us over here in Bayshore. I think I really found out that it's our job to put ourselves out there. You know, more soft and all the time, even these council meetings. I know Ms. Brown sits in those meetings sometimes, but just 2 weeks, 2 minutes, 2 minutes has been so small for a public comment. But I suggest we call a meeting with the city council or send an email to them. Send them an email, they'll take it. That's it. That's my, oh, and then Saturday is the Shine event that Pitt is hosting. It's our 11th year.
Wow.
And we just finished a heritage award ceremony that was done at Coma Community Center last Friday. And Pitt won the Polynesian Organization of the Year 2022.
Wow.
So we had the red carpet and everything. It was
Nice.
It was huge. It was huge.
So is it Pacific Islanders together?
Yes.
Okay.
It was huge, and I think I just saw our chair, Miss Reyna, is awarded as the Hall of Fame of the Year in the county, her and the only 2 Pacific Islands women that they just won. And so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to these to the new successor and the processing.
So Teresa, did you go to this 2-day event
Yes.
on your own? Under your own?
No, 750 to pay? No, heck no. I had sponsors. I had somebody pay my way to go there. And it was networking. The food was. It was sponsored by.
Ms. Joy?
May I go last?
Sure. Ms. Brown?
Oh, well, no, this is on my own, but also through my nonprofit. There was a nonprofit space at the Chan Zuckerberg Center in Redwood City. And it was, the focus was voter education outreach. And I think it's very important to get the community, educated on. I think June 7th is, one of the elections coming up. So I was able to get a toolkit. I can share it, but you have to make your own copies. But they only gave out a handful of the voter registration cards, also bookmarks with information, just like what Teresa's passing out now, a stack of information focused on voting and getting the community out to vote. How can they do it? And then our organization was able to get their logo on the same information pamphlets. So I feel I can probably pass out one to each of you. It just wasn't enough. And the organization that put this on is Thrive Alliance. And they also do candidate forums.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, I want to thank PTO tonight if they're watching. Tonight, before our board meeting started, there was a virtual family tech talk presentation with internet safety experts that were presenting. And it was very important information that it provided to the families and even students, because as we know with social media and a lot of things that are out there with a lot of the games and apps that are being used today, there are a lot of predators. There's a lot of inappropriate things that happen on the web. But I think for parents, we really need to pay attention to our children because, we talk about SEL, the social emotional learning that's happening here. And it really hits hard when you have kids or students who are having access to things, but they're not being monitored. So I want to thank PTO for sponsoring this online event on Zoom because, here we are going into summer and, so some kids are not going to be in summer school, some might be at home. And most of them will be on their electronics. And if we're not prepared to monitor what they're using or what platforms or social media platforms they're using, it can be damaging as it is now for most. So
Do you know if they recorded it?
they did record it. Oh, good. Yeah. So I believe, I don't know if we can reach out to
Yeah,
her,
I will follow up with
Yeah.
them and see about those.
but I think
Excellent.
that's something that, we can utilize for parents to really take some action and police that. I know we can't police it all the time, but set up phones, tablets, computers, your home network to, monitor access. It's very important because we see some things that are being played out on school grounds, in public, and everywhere else. And I think it's very important that we come together and do our due diligence to identify with those things and support it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and be as brief and then I'll pass it over to Joy. Just again, thank you, staff. There was a meme going around that about it. If you're having appreciation week, then you probably work really hard. And we know that our staff works really hard and we are so grateful. As a parent, I'm especially grateful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will also, as a parent, give another plug. Come out, see Susical. There's 3 shows. There's no excuse for you not to be here to one of those shows, or come to all 3. Some of us will be there. And to my fellow board, just a reminder, May 18th for our closed session meeting with the consultants. And then as Ms. Brown brought up, please vote June 7th. It's our civic duty. It's a privilege. Take advantage of it. It's all right. Get out there, vote. And with that, I will pass it over to Joy.
Also for the Bayshore PTO, they are holding a family fit 2. It's a free event on Wednesday, May 18th from 4 to 5, and it'll be held here at the gym. With our recent subcommittees, there's something that came to mind, and it was a quote by Helen Keller. The character cannot be developed in ease and quiet, only through experience of trial and suffering, and the soul is strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. And so I'm hoping that through all these trials and tribulations that we've been going through, that we can become stronger as a district, as a community, and as a whole. With that being said, I've made a decision that I've been thinking about for a very long time, and so I plan on retiring, and my last day will be July 8th. I'm sorry.
You retired from work. She's not old enough to retire.
I wish.
I thought she said tired, but not retired.
I thought you said you were tired.
I'm retiring from the board.
Joy.
And I wish nothing but the best for the school district. You guys are doing a great job and moving things forward, and I know it'll only get better.
Well, of course, I'm, you know, you will be missed. But respect your decision. And obviously we will, we're going to take advantage of you until July 8th.
We got work to do.
We got a lot of work to do. Not that you aren't on already enough subcommittees, so. But again, yeah, thank you for your years of service. And obviously we can talk more about that as the July 8th. I know. I know.
And how many years has it been?
On May 3rd, it was 9 years. 2013, when I was first appointed.
Yeah, I was right behind you. So after you.
Oh, no.
What's going on here?
Okay, well, with that, if there's no other board reports, we will go ahead and adjourn open session at 8:24 p.m. So